Y'all know I ain't buying that.
Lola, they know Daddy not buying that. No, Daddy not buying that.
I ain't buying it, Jack. If you're going to tell me that the brothers and sisters moving lockstep in the civil rights movement was an anomaly, that the brothers and sisters standing side by side with each other with a fist up in the Black Panther Party was an anomaly, then I'm just going to take my ball and go home. I don't even want to play on y'all court no more because y'all be cheating. Because I'm not buying that the division that we're seeing today was present 60 years ago. Let me remind y'all that I was born in 85. I've lived through a time where the division wasn't like this. I watched the wholesome Black family on television. I listened to when there was love, togetherness, and expressions of a need for one another in mainstream music. I seen the men in my community rush to go help a sister carrying something that was a bit too heavy for her. I grew up in a Black community rebuilding from the effects of a drug epidemic. I may not have seen the destruction, but I seen the rebuilding effort. And there were Black men and women present in that effort. I never remember a time where Black men and women disregarded each other until recently. Recently meaning the last handful of years, when it became profitable to do so. And that is what makes this different. A Black man putting forth a plan that will benefit his people as a whole. A Black woman getting sentenced to 9 years in prison for less than a gram of cannabis oil. Neither of these incidents call for anyone of the opposite sex to speak in a negative way. They simply chose to. I imagine it's the women on a panel's inability to follow a Black man's lead that inspired their response. I still don't understand why some of the brothers decided to respond the way they did. I mean, if there's any ethnic subgroup that should be empathetic to Brittany Griner's situation, it would be the one that finds themselves being racially profiled, arrested more, and sentenced to longer terms than any of their counterparts. I mean, how many, if they were Black, cases can we identify? And that certainly was not the response to Andrew Tate being unjustly detained on far worse accusations, nor was it the response for Tory Lanez, nor was it the response for Jonathan Majors. And honestly, it's sad, because you cannot find a Black woman speaking in favor of what happened to Rodney King. You cannot find a Black woman saying that that man deserved what happened to him. What you're going to find is Black women standing up speaking against what happened to that man. There's an old episode of Oprah, of all shows, where a young white woman stood up and said she agreed with the verdict in that case. And you could see that the immediate reaction of the Black women in the crowd was of utter disgust. A Black woman immediately rose up and spoke to object. That wasn't 60 years ago. You cannot find a Black man speaking negatively of what happened to Sandra Bland. Google it, YouTube it. You will not find it. I imagine that if either of those situations happened today, Rodney King would be all kind of dusties. That's what his dusty ass get. And Sandra Bland, it would have been, oh, see, if you knew how to listen to a man, you would have never ended up in that situation. But I'm projecting, so let me stop. See, we love to explain away some shit. We can identify when something made a change with pinpoint accuracy, but in the same breath, act like there's nothing that can be done to change anything going forward. I contend that it will be even more damning if this shit has been going on since the 60s. Because that would mean that 3 generations of Black people did absolutely nothing to change it. But we know that's not the case. Because if there's anything that we know about the Black men and women of that era is that they stood for change. But the reason some of us feel like there could never be any change is because we don't desire to see any change. There are too many hedge bets on Black failure. I mean, I use an injustice happening to a sister as an example, and someone had the audacity to write a comment agreeing with the injustice. If their position was that Brittany Griner shouldn't have been sentenced to that much time, but they still feel like she shouldn't have been swapped, okay, cool, to each his own. But that person added, if they did the crime, let them do the time. And see, there it is. That's how you know there's an underlying issue there. At that point, someone just has to look within themselves and try to identify why that hatred exists. I mean, what amount of time should a person get for less than a gram of cannabis oil? Do you even know what a gram of cannabis oil looks like? It could easily be lost in a pair of jeans, yet alone months worth of luggage. In my opinion, the more than 9 months that she spent locked up would more than suffice as doing the time. Injustices shouldn't be viewed as, well, since the last person had to do X amount of time, this person should have to do it also. No, they should be viewed as nobody should have to do X amount of time for that. Let's not act like what's law is what's right. That's the easiest argument to dismantle in the world. There are a lot of men that are divorced that can argue that point a lot better than I can. What's law has never meant what's right, what's just, or what's appropriate. It's just law. But you guys have inspired a few more writings out of me. So I'll address some of the other things in future writings. Things like disingenuous arguments, separation by label, the convenience of hindsight, and how growing trends work. But I will say this, black or not, if you dislike black people, it will behoove you to steer clear of my channel because I am going to enjoy making you hate me. Y'all come back here now. My people,